Some stories are written in ink. Ours are written in fear. Welcome to Whisper Pen. Take a deep breath and let the darkness in.
I don't know who will read this. Maybe the police. Maybe some cleaner sent to my squalid apartment after the neighbors complain about the smell. Or maybe no one. Maybe these words will vanish along with me. But I have to write. I have to try and piece together the fragments in my head before they shatter completely. My name is Kenji Tanaka. I'm a sound engineer, and I was the one who found it. It all started in a painfully ordinary, even boring way. I was working on a personal project, a YouTube documentary series about lost legends of the gaming industry. One of the most fascinating topics, of course, was the Lavender Town Syndrome. You know the story, right? The urban legend about the original background music from Lavender Town in the first Japanese release of Pokémon Green, that it contained hidden binaural frequencies capable of causing headaches, nausea, and even suicide in children. Most people dismiss it as nonsense, a well-crafted creepypasta. I used to think so too. I'm a man of science, of sound waves, of frequencies and decibels. To me, sound is numbers, it's physics. It can't be demonic. Oh, how wrong I was. My hunt lasted for months. I scoured ancient gaming forums, archived websites from the GeoCities era, and contacted retired programmers. Most ignored me. A few replied, but only with vague denials. It's just a rumor, kid. Until one day, I received an email. It came from an encrypted address with no sender name. The content was just one line. You seek the melody of spirits. It, too, seeks ears to listen. Attached was a password-protected zip file. The password was Shion. Shion Town. The Japanese name for Lavender Town. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The holy grail of gaming legends. I downloaded the file. My antivirus scan found nothing unusual. I unzipped it. Inside was a single file. Lavender.beta.wav. I sat in my small, cramped studio. A messy room with soundproofing foam the color of old porridge, cables tangled like spaghetti, and the faint smell of stale coffee. Outside, Tokyo at night was still brilliant and noisy. But in this room, my world was about to shrink to the size of a pair of headphones. I put on my professional studio headphones, my Sennheiser HD800S, the most valuable thing I own. They can reproduce sound with terrifying accuracy. I used to think that was a plus. I took a deep breath and double-clicked the file. And then it began.
It was unlike any version I had ever heard on YouTube. Those versions were shrill, unpleasant. This was different. It also began with those high, monotonous chiptune notes, but there was a background layer of sound I'd never heard before. A faint hiss, almost imperceptible, like wind whistling through a narrow crack, or static from an old TV. And then the main notes rang out. They weren't stable. They trembled, teetered, as if the organ player was on the verge of tears. The melody repeated, familiar yet alien. It dug into my skull. I could feel it, not just hear it, but feel it. A slight pressure began to build behind my eye sockets. I opened my spectrum analysis software. The screen displayed a strange sight. Besides the main frequencies of the melody, There were extremely low and extremely high peaks, outside the normal range of human hearing. And they weren't fixed. They moved, they drifted, creating a subtle and malevolent binaural effect. They weren't just two different frequencies for each ear. They were a chaotic mess of ghostly frequencies, whispering things my conscious mind couldn't understand, but my subconscious could. I listened for about 2 minutes. The headache became more pronounced. A dull ache, like a band tightening around my forehead. I took off the headphones. The silence in the room suddenly felt unnaturally heavy. Well, I said to myself, trying to be funny, that's the good stuff. Probably just psychosomatic. I got up and went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea. My apartment is tiny, just a few steps away. As I was waiting for the water to boil, I heard it. Click. A very soft sound, like the click of a mouse pointer on an icon. Click. It came from the studio. I turned to look. My computer screen was still on, displaying the spectrum analysis software. Nothing unusual. Must be a faulty mouse, I thought, and turned back to my kettle. That was the first night.
The next day, I woke up with a worse headache. It felt like someone had been gently tapping my head with a hammer all night. I tried to work, but I couldn't focus. That melody kept looping in my mind. Not the main notes, but that bizarre, hissing background noise. I decided to call Taka, my only close friend. Taka is a programmer, a guy so pragmatic he's borderline cruel, with the sense of humor of a rock. Hello. Taka's voice was sleepy. I must have woken him up. Taka, I found it, I said, my voice full of excitement. The original Lavender Town music file. Great. Now can you stop bothering me about it and go find a girlfriend? No, you don't understand. It's weird. It actually gives you a headache. That's what 8-bit music does, you idiot. Listen to it too much and your ears will ring. Now let me sleep. He hung up. I felt a bit annoyed, but also a little relieved. Maybe Taka was right. It was just me being obsessed. That evening, I decided to listen again. This time for analysis. I couldn't let some silly fear get in the way of my project. I put on the headphones, played the file, and kept my eyes glued to the analysis screen. The melody looped. First loop, second loop. The headache returned, more intense. I started to feel nauseous. The background hiss seemed louder, no longer like wind. It sounded like hundreds, thousands of insects flapping their wings at once. And then I saw it on the spectrum display. For a split second, amidst the chaotic peaks, the frequencies rearranged themselves. They formed an image, a blurry, glitchy image, but unmistakable. A hand with 3 long bony fingers reaching out, like the hand of a haunter. I ripped the headphones off, throwing them onto the desk. My heart was a war drum. My breath came in ragged gasps. I stared at the computer screen. The image was gone, leaving only the meaningless waveforms as before. No way. No way. It's just a coincidence. It's pareidolia. I stood up, pacing the room. The room seemed smaller, the walls closing in. I needed air. I opened the window, looking down at the neon-drenched street below. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something. A smudge of purple. It zipped past the edge of my vision. I whipped my head around. Nothing. Just the light from some billboard reflecting off the glass? That had to be it. I slammed the window shut. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that 3-fingered hand, and the melody carved into my mind like a dull knife.
The following days were a long, drawn-out nightmare. Things got progressively worse. I started seeing them everywhere, not just purple smudges anymore. Once, I was in the bathroom, hot steam fogging up the mirror. As the steam began to clear, I saw it, a face forming on the glass. 2 triangular white eyes and a wide ear-to-ear grin, the face of a ghastly. It existed for only a second before vanishing completely. I screamed and slipped, falling pathetically onto the bathroom floor. Another time, I was walking home late at night. The alley leading to my apartment building was always dark and empty. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. Scrape, scrape. The sound of bone grinding on bone. I didn't dare turn around. I walked faster. The sound got faster. I started to run. The sound chased after me, getting closer and closer. I could feel a cold breath on the back of my neck. I didn't look. I just ran for my life, burst into the building, and frantically jabbed the elevator button. The doors closed just before I could see what was chasing me. Safe in my apartment, I peeked through the pee-hole. The hallway was empty. I started losing weight. My eyes were sunken and dark. I didn't dare listen to the file anymore, but it didn't matter. The melody was already in my head. It was a part of me. Sometimes I'd find myself humming it unconsciously. Taka called me back, his voice worried.
Hey Kenji, what's up with you? I've been calling. I'm not doing so well, I mumbled. Is it still about that music file? Come on, man, listen to me. You're just obsessed. How about we go out for a few drinks tonight? Clear your head. Going out? Seeing people? The idea sounded both appealing and terrifying, but I needed to get out of this apartment. Okay, I agreed. We met at a noisy izakaya in Shinjuku. The smell of grilled meat and the sound of people laughing and talking around me made me feel a little better. Taka looked me up and down.
Jesus, you look like an actual ghost, he said, with no tact whatsoever. Have you been eating?
I'm not in the mood, I replied. I told him everything. About the hand on the spectrum display, the face in the mirror, the sound of dry bones in the alley. I told him in a stuttering, frantic mess, trying to make him believe me. Taka listened patiently, nodding, and took a long swig of his beer. When I was done, he slammed the mug down on the table. Kenji, he said with the most serious expression I'd ever seen on him, you need to sleep and maybe see a therapist. You don't believe me? I believe you're under a massive amount of stress. You've been hunting this damn file for months. Now that you've found it, your brain is drawing the things you want to see. It's called confirmation bias. I told you, you need to get out more, play a sport, find a girlfriend, do anything but sit in your dark little hole of a room listening to ghost music. A part of me knew Taka was right. His explanation was perfectly logical. But another part, the part that had seen the face in the mirror, the part that had heard the dry bones, screamed that he was wrong. But the frequencies, I tried to argue. Junk frequencies. It could be a file compression error or from whatever ancient computer created it. You're a sound engineer. You should know this better than anyone. Our conversation hit a dead end. I drank a lot that night, trying to drown the melody in my head with alcohol. It worked for a little while. I got drunk and sleepy. Taka had to help me home. All right, you drunk, he grumbled as he pushed me into my apartment. Promise me you'll delete that file tomorrow. Promise me. Yeah. I promise, I mumbled before collapsing onto my bed and falling into a stupor.
I didn't delete it. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding hangover, but there was an irresistible urge. I needed to know more. I couldn't stop. I turned on my computer. This time, I didn't just analyze the sound. I decided to examine the data of the WAV file itself. I opened it with a hex editor. Thousands upon thousands of numbers and characters appeared, a meaningless wall of code to the average person. But I wasn't the average person. I had spent years studying audio file structures. I knew where to look. I scrolled past the header, the audio data, and then I found it. At the very end of the file, after the audio data had concluded, there was a strange block of code. It didn't belong to the WAV format. It was like a hidden comment.
Most of it was junk characters, but interspersed between them were numbers, a long string of numbers. 35.7314, 139.125. I froze. I knew this format. These were coordinates, latitude and longitude. Trembling, I copied the string of numbers and pasted it into Google Maps. The map zoomed in from a panorama of Japan to the Kanto region, then to the outskirts of Tokyo. The pin dropped on a location in Chiba Prefecture, a remote area full of trees and small roads. The name of the location was Kasori Public Cemetery. A cemetery. You seek the melody of spirits. It too seeks ears to listen. The line from the email echoed in my head. The melody wasn't created to sound spooky. This melody was something that had been recorded, and this was where it was recorded. The fear in me had now turned into something else, a morbid curiosity, an urge to see this through to the end. I had to go there. I had no other choice. I started to prepare. I stuffed a portable audio recorder, a camera, a flashlight, and a small fruit knife into my backpack. The knife made me feel a little safer, even though I knew it was useless against what I was facing. A dark, humorous thought flashed through my mind, bringing a knife to a ghost fight. Smart move, Kenji.
As I was about to leave, my computer suddenly made a sound. Ping! The notification sound of a video call. The caller was Taka. The screen showed his worried face. Kenji, what the hell are you doing? I saw you were online. Did you delete that file? I looked at the screen, then at the backpack on my shoulder. I couldn't lie to him. I have to go, Taka. I found an address. What address? What are you talking about? Kenji, listen to me. You're not well. Stay put. I'm coming over. No, I said, my voice firm. You wouldn't understand. I have to do this myself. And then, as I was speaking, something appeared on the screen, behind my back in the video feed. I didn't see it in the room, but I saw it on the webcam. A tall, thin, lanky black shadow. It had no clear shape, like a digital glitch in the air, but it had eyes. Glowing red eyes curved like two crescent moons in a smile. The smile of a Gengar. Taka saw it too. His face changed from worry to pure terror. His mouth hung open, but no sound came out. The shadow on the screen slowly raised an arm, a 3-fingered hand. It placed it on my shoulder in the video. Instantly, I felt a bone-chilling cold on my real shoulder, as if someone had just placed a block of ice there. Taka, I stammered, my eyes glued to the screen. The shadow tilted its head, and then the connection was lost. The screen went black. My phone rang. It was Taka. I answered, trembling. Kenji, what was that? What the hell is in your room? He screamed, his voice cracking with terror. I don't know. Get out of there now! Go! Come to my place! Hurry! But I couldn't. The pull towards the cemetery was stronger than my fear. It was no longer curiosity. It was a command. The melody in my head was screaming, showing me the way. I can't, I said, and hung up. I knew Taka would call the police. I didn't have much time. I slung my backpack on, opened the door, and ran out of my apartment, running from the only friend who was trying to save me.
The train ride to Chiba was a torturous experience. Every face I saw on the train seemed distorted. For a moment, the old woman sitting across from me seemed to have hollow black pits for eyes, like an abandoned Pidgey. A young boy playing a game on his phone suddenly looked up, and his smile was unnaturally wide, like a Rattata's. I closed my eyes, but it was worse. The Lavender Town melody was no longer chiptune. It had transformed. I heard children crying, wind howling, glass shattering, all woven into that ghostly tune.
and above it all, the scraping sound of dry bones getting closer. I arrived at the station nearest the cemetery as evening was falling. The sky was a sickly orange-purple. From the station, I had to walk another 2 kilometers. The road became more deserted, flanked by fields and old houses. Not a soul in sight. The silence here was terrifying. It was different from the silence in my apartment. This was the silence of a place that had been forgotten. Finally, I saw it. An old stone gate covered in moss. The wooden sign that read Kasori Public Cemetery was rotten, the words almost illegible. I stepped inside. The cemetery wasn't large, but it was overgrown and wild. The grass was knee-high, the stone graves were crooked, leaning like rotten teeth. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. I wandered aimlessly. I didn't know what I was looking for. A specific grave? A tree? The sun sank below the tree line. Darkness began to swallow everything. I turned on my flashlight. Its beam was weak, cutting only a small circle in front of me, making the surrounding darkness seem even deeper. The melody in my head grew louder, clearer, as if I was approaching the source. It wasn't a memory. It was actually playing from somewhere in this cemetery. And then I heard another sound, a real sound. Sob, sob. The sound of a child crying. It was coming from behind a large clump of trees in the center of the cemetery. My heart stopped. Every instinct in my body screamed, "Run!" But my legs wouldn't obey. They moved automatically toward the crying. The compulsion had taken complete control.
I pushed through the trees. In the beam of my flashlight, I saw a sight that froze me to the spot. There, in front of a small, unmarked grave, just a rough stone for a marker, a small figure was curled up. It had its back to me. It was wearing what looked like old clothes, and it was wearing something on its head. A skull, a bleached white skull with 2 large, empty eye sockets. It was a Cubone. No. Impossible. Pokémon aren't real. This is just a hallucination. My brain is severely damaged, but its sobs sounded painfully real. It trembled, its shoulders shaking with each sob. "Hey?" I stammered, not knowing who or what I was talking to. "Are you okay?" The figure stopped crying. It slowly turned its head. My flashlight beam landed squarely on its face. It wasn't the face of a Cubone. Underneath the skull was the face of a boy of about 7 or 8. His skin was pale, his lips purple, but the most terrifying thing was his eyes. They were completely empty, 2 deep black pits with no pupils, no life. And then the boy smiled, a soulless smile. "Did you come to play with me?" The boy's voice echoed, but not from his mouth. It resonated directly inside my head, sharp and clear. "Mommy's gone. I'm all alone here. It's been so long." The Lavender Town melody exploded in my skull, so loud I had to scream and cover my ears. It was useless. It wasn't coming from outside. The boy stood up. "Let's play together." The voice in my head said again, but this time it was no longer a child's voice. It was overlaid with dozens, hundreds of other voices. Screams, pleas, manic laughter. The air around me began to ripple. From the ground, from behind the graves, black shadows began to rise. They were blurry, distorted like bad TV signals. Some were shaped like ghastly, haunter,
Others had the shapes of familiar Pokémon, but horribly deformed. A Rattata with a broken, dangling jaw, a Pidgey with only one wing. They weren't ghosts. They were painful memories. They were concentrated loneliness. "That music file," I gasped, backing away. Was it you?" The boy tilted his head, the skull tilting with it. "It's my song, the song from when Mommy left. I sang it every day until no one could hear me anymore." I understood then, horrifyingly. This boy, he had died here, alone and scared. He loved Pokémon. Cubone was his favorite, a symbol of his own grief for his mother. The melody was the psychic echo of his pain, his loneliness. Some programmer, perhaps a psychic sensitive, had accidentally recorded that echo while visiting for inspiration. They had put it in the game, never knowing they had planted a curse. The beta file, the original, it didn't contain man-made frequencies. It contained the frequency of a shattered soul. "I just want someone to play with," the boy's spirit said, moving closer. The other ghosts swarmed me, their ethereal hands reaching out. I felt a deep chill as a ghastly's hand passed through my arm. My vision began to blur. It felt like life itself was being drained from my body.
"No!" I screamed. In a fit of absolute panic, I remembered the thing in my backpack, the portable audio recorder. A crazy idea flashed in my mind. If this melody is a recording, maybe I can overwrite it? I fumbled for the device and slammed the record button. "Go away! All of you, go away!" I roared into the microphone. "Leave me alone!" My scream, amplified through the recorder's small speaker, seemed to have an effect. The ghosts stopped. The boy frowned, looking confused. The melody in my head was slightly distorted, interrupted by my own shouting. It was working. I kept shouting, whatever came to mind. I sang a stupid children's song. I recited the multiplication table. I told a terrible joke Taka once told me. 2 tomatoes were crossing the road. One got hit by a car. Splat! The other one turned and said, "Come on, catch up." Ha ha ha! The sheer absurdity of the act seemed to confuse the spirits. They took a step back. The melody in my head grew weaker and weaker, drowned out by my nonsense. The boy looked at me, his empty eyes seeming to hold a flicker of emotion. Surprise. "You don't want to play?" "No!" I screamed. "Your game is too scary. I want to go home. I want to drink beer with my friend. I want to eat ramen." The most mundane, ordinary desires of life, that was my weapon. The boy looked sad. "No one wants to play with me?" The ghosts began to fade. The melody in my head receded, shrinking until it was just a distant whisper. The boy looked at me one last time, and then his form flickered and dissolved into the air. All that was left was the skull, which fell to the ground, rolled a few times, and came to rest on the damp grass. All around me, the cemetery returned to silence. There was only the sound of the wind and my own heart pounding in my chest. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes? Hours? Finally, I could move again. I turned and I ran. I ran without looking back. I ran past the crooked graves, out of the stone gate, down the dirt road. I ran until my lungs felt like they would burst and my legs gave out. I didn't stop until I saw the lights of the train station. I'm writing these last lines in a psychiatric hospital. Taka and the police found me wandering around Tokyo Station, my clothes torn, covered in mud, muttering about Pokémon ghosts. They say I had an acute nervous breakdown from overwork and stress. They say everything I saw was a hallucination. My laptop, the one with the Lavender.beta.wav file, is gone. I must have dropped it somewhere while I was running. I hope so. I pray no one ever finds it. The doctors say I'm recovering well. Headaches are gone. I don't see the purple smudges anymore. But the melody. Sometimes at night, when everything is quiet, I can still hear it. Very faint. Like an echo from a place far, far away. They say I'll be discharged soon. Taka promised to pick me up. He said we'll go get ramen. I don't know if I can ever go back to a normal life. I don't know if I can ever listen to chiptune music without trembling. I don't know if the curse is truly gone or if it's just dormant, waiting for another pair of ears to listen. Last night, a new nurse came into my room for a checkup. She was very kind, smiling and asking how I felt. As she turned to leave the room, I noticed something small and white clipped to her hair, a barrette shaped like a bone.
The final word has been written for tonight, but the Whisper Pen is never truly silent. Subscribe and return for the next chapter. Good night.